The wooden gavel slammed against the block, silencing the courtroom chatter. "All rise," the bailiff commanded. The judge entered, expression stern, eyes scanning the crowded room. It was supposed to be a routine case, a defendant accused of disorderly conduct during a street altercation. Nothing unusual, nothing that should have drawn much attention. But what unfolded that day would shake the entire courthouse. At the prosecutor's table sat Jonathan Cole, a man well known for his arrogance and cutting remarks. He had built his career on belittling defendants, especially those who looked vulnerable or less fortunate. To Cole, the courtroom was a stage, and humiliation was part of the performance. At the defense table sat the defendant, a middle-aged man in a simple gray suit, slightly worn at the edges. His calm demeanor stood in sharp contrast to the prosecutor's smug energy. He clasped his hands quietly, almost as if he were waiting. "Ladies and gentlemen of the court," Prosecutor Cole began, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "What we have here is nothing more than a man who clearly doesn't belong in a courtroom unless it's in the audience. Just look at him." The prosecutor smirked, pacing dramatically. Dressed like he just pulled his suit out of a thrift shop bargain bin. And he dares stand before us, claiming innocence. Laughter rippled quietly from a few spectators. The judge frowned but allowed Cole to continue. The defendant didn't react. He sat still, his expression calm, eyes steady. Cole leaned over the defense table, sneering. "Tell me, sir, do you even understand the law? Do you even know what you're doing here? Or do you just hope that if you sit quietly long enough, someone will feel sorry for you?" The room grew tense. The defendant spoke softly for the first time. "Respectfully, Prosecutor Cole, I understand more than you realize." Cole chuckled, waving his hand dismissively. "We'll see about that." As the hearing progressed, Cole continued his verbal assault. He mocked the defendant's background, sneered at his choice of words, and suggested that someone like him didn't deserve to waste the court's time. Yet, every time the defendant was given the chance to respond, his answers were calm, measured, and surprisingly insightful. It was as though he did know the law intimately, perhaps better than the prosecutor himself. The spectators began shifting uncomfortably. Some whispered, sensing that something wasn't quite right. Finally, the judge, growing tired of Cole's theatrics, interjected. "Enough, counselor. We will move forward. Defendant, please state your full name and occupation for the record." The defendant stood slowly, buttoning his jacket. His voice was calm, clear, and commanding. "My name," he said, pausing as his gaze swept the room, "is David Harrington. As of last week, I was sworn in as the new district attorney of this state." The courtroom fell silent. The prosecutor's face was drained of color. His smirk vanished, replaced with disbelief. He stammered, What? That's impossible." But the judge's eyes widened in recognition. "Mr. Harrington," the judge said carefully, "I did read the announcement from the governor's office. Congratulations on your appointment." Gasps echoed across the courtroom. The defendant wasn't a defendant at all. He had been observing undercover to see how prosecutors conducted themselves in cases involving vulnerable citizens. Prosecutor Cole's hands trembled as he tried to regain composure. This is highly irregular. He can't just." But Harrington raised a hand, silencing him with quiet authority. "You've had plenty of time to speak, counselor. Now it's my turn." He stepped forward, his calm voice carrying more weight than Cole's entire performance. "Today, I didn't just see arrogance. I saw abuse of power. A prosecutor who believes mocking and humiliating others is the same as justice. This courtroom is supposed to be a place of fairness, not a stage for your ego." Cole's mouth opened, but no words came out. Sweat trickled down his forehead. The entire courtroom stared, waiting for the fallout. Harrington continued, "And now I have to decide what to do with a prosecutor who disgraces not just this courtroom, but the very office he represents." The air was electric. Everyone leaned forward. Harrington's eyes locked on Cole. "Prosecutor Jonathan Cole, your future in this office hangs by a thread. I'll be making my decision soon. Very soon. The gavel slammed. The judge adjourned the session. As the room erupted in whispers, Cole sank into his chair, pale and shaken. The camera of imagination lingers on Harrington's calm face as he exits the courtroom. His expression unreadable. Arrogance blinds. Respect uplifts. And sometimes, the person you belittle holds more power than you could ever imagine. The courthouse had never been so alive. By the morning after the dramatic reveal, whispers ran through every hallway like wildfire. Did you hear? That wasn't just a defendant. It was the new district attorney. Prosecutor Cole really mocked his own boss. It's over for him. Jonathan Cole, once proud and untouchable, could feel every stare burn into him as he walked the courthouse halls. His name, once synonymous with courtroom victories, was now a stain on the city's gossip mill. Reporters swarmed outside, shouting questions he dared not answer. Meanwhile, District Attorney Marcus Harrington sat quietly in his new office. He could have easily fired Cole that day in court, humiliated him publicly just as he had been humiliated. But Harrington was not a man who wasted power on revenge. He was a man who played the long game. As sunlight streamed through his office blinds, Harrington opened Cole's case files. Row after row of them. At first, they looked clean, perfectly ordered. Too perfect. Harrington leaned back in his chair, his instincts humming. Prosecutors always left trails. Missed filings, questionable evidence, deals that didn't quite add up. But Cole's files seemed polished to a shine, almost sterile. Or sanitized, Harrington muttered under his breath. That was when he found it. A case involving a young man accused of theft. The evidence against him had been shaky at best, but Cole had fought ruthlessly for the maximum sentence. The young man had no lawyer, no resources. He had been chewed up and spat out by the system. Harrington frowned. It wasn't just harsh, it was predatory. And it wasn't the only case. The deeper he went, the more patterns emerged. Harsh sentences for the poor, mercy for the wealthy, and in several cases, deals that favored known businessmen with shady reputations. This wasn't incompetence. It was corruption. Jonathan Cole sat in a dim bar that evening, nursing a glass of whiskey. His phone buzzed constantly. Calls from colleagues, emails from reporters, even texts from his wife asking what had really happened. But it was the headlines that cut the deepest. Prosecutor publicly embarrassed by new DA. Cole's career in jeopardy. His hand trembled as he scrolled. He had worked too hard, clawed too high to lose everything now. So he did the only thing he knew how to do, fight dirty. Pulling out his phone, Cole dialed a number few people dared to. "Yeah," he said into the receiver, lowering his voice. "I need information. On Harrington. Anything, his past, his family, his weaknesses. I don't care how you get it." There was silence on the other end before a cold voice replied, "Consider it done." Cole smirked, but the smile never reached his eyes. Deep down, he knew he was playing a dangerous game. Back at the DA's office, Harrington worked late into the night. Stacks of files covered his desk, lit only by the soft glow of a desk lamp. He wasn't just reading, he was connecting dots. Plea deal here. A questionable conviction there. Each thread seemed to lead back to the same circle of businessmen and politicians. Cole had been protecting them, ensuring their interests remained untouched while the poor and voiceless suffered. At midnight, Harrington found what he had been looking for. A document buried inside a case file, signed by Cole. It wasn't much, but it was damning enough to raise questions about a payoff. Harrington exhaled slowly, a grim smile on his face. "Got you." The next morning, Harrington requested a private meeting with Cole. The prosecutor walked in, his arrogance thinner than before, but still there. "Marcus," Cole said smoothly, as if they were old friends. "Or should I say, District Attorney Harrington. Quite the entrance you made." Harrington didn't flinch. "Sit down, Jonathan." Cole's smirk faded at the tone. He sat, crossing his arms. "I've been reviewing your cases," Harrington said calmly. "Some of them don't add up." Cole's eyes narrowed. "Are you accusing me of something?" "Not yet." Harrington leaned forward. "But I will say this, You've left a trail, and I intend to follow it. Cole forced a laugh, but there was no humor in it. Careful, Mr. DA. Dig too deep and you might not like what you find. Some truths are better left buried. Their eyes locked. Two men, one with everything to lose, the other with everything to prove. That night, Harrington returned to his office, eager to build a case against Cole. He placed the incriminating document in a locked drawer, promising himself he'd hand it to the state's investigative bureau first thing in the morning. But fate had other plans. At 2 a.m., the DA's office was silent. Then, crash, a shadowy figure slipped through the window, moving with precision. They knew exactly where to go. Within minutes, the drawer was forced open, the document stolen. By dawn, Harrington walked into his office to find chaos. The lock is broken, papers scattered, and worst of all, his evidence gone. He stood in the wreckage, his jaw tightening. Whoever had done this was powerful, connected, and willing to play dirty. The game had just changed. Harrington turned toward the window, looking out at the city skyline. His reflection stared back at him, calm, determined, unyielding. They think they can bury the truth, he whispered, but they don't know who they're up against. Behind him, the phone on his desk rang. Slowly, Harrington picked it up. On the other end was a distorted voice. Back off, Harrington. Or next time, it won't just be your office that gets broken into. The line went dead. Harrington's hand tightened around the receiver, his mind already racing. The battle wasn't just about Cole anymore. It was bigger, darker, more dangerous than he imagined. Injustice thrives in shadows, but when light threatens to expose it, the shadows fight back. And for Marcus Harrington, the fight was only beginning. The silence in District Attorney Marcus Harrington's office was deafening. Papers were scattered across the floor, drawers forced open, the once tidy space left in ruin. The break-in was surgical. Whoever had done this wasn't a common thief. They knew exactly what to take. The signed document linking Jonathan Cole to a payoff scheme. It was the proof Harrington needed. And now it is gone. Harrington leaned against his desk, jaw tight, staring at the shattered lock on the file cabinet. For a moment, frustration welled in his chest, but he pushed it down. He had learned long ago, in war, in law, in life, that anger clouded judgment. All right, he muttered to himself. If they want to fight in the shadows, then I'll fight in the shadows. By morning, the courthouse was buzzing with whispers. Reporters hounded the DA's office with questions. Is it true your office was broken into? Does this have anything to do with Prosecutor Cole? Are you being targeted? Harrington gave no answers. The press wanted drama. He wanted justice. But the break-in wasn't the only fire he was putting out. Cole was striking back. Rumors surfaced in the media, allegations about Harrington's military past, whispers of misconduct, even unverified claims of financial irregularities. None of it is true, but Cole didn't need the truth. He needed doubt, and doubt spread quickly. That night, Harrington returned home to find a small brown package sitting on his doorstep. No address, no name, just his. Inside was a single bullet and a note, written in jagged block letters. Stop digging, or you'll be next. For a moment, Harrington sat at his kitchen table, staring at the bullet rolling gently between his fingers. Most men would have panicked. He had seen worse, on battlefields where the enemy never signed their warnings. But this wasn't war. This was something more insidious. He placed the bullet back in the box, closed it, and whispered, "You'll have to do better than that." The next day, Harrington shifted tactics. Instead of chasing Cole directly, he began tracing his network. Businessmen, judges, lobbyists, and wealthy donors who had all benefited from Cole's decisions in court. Case by case, Harrington noticed a disturbing pattern. Defendants with deep pockets seemed to walk free, while poor and powerless ones faced crushing sentences. Late at night, under the glow of a desk lamp, Harrington marked names on a board. Judges who mysteriously dismissed charges. Businessmen whose companies thrived after Cole's prosecutions collapsed. Politicians who received sudden donations after key trials. Piece by piece, a web of corruption began to emerge. Cole wasn't just an arrogant prosecutor drunk on power. He was a pawn in something larger, something systemic. Meanwhile, Cole felt the walls closing in. The courtroom humiliation still lingered like a scar. His colleagues looked at him differently, some with pity, most with contempt. His phone buzzed constantly with reporters demanding answers. But Cole wasn't ready to fall. He met in secret with a well-dressed man in a private cigar lounge. The man was a known power broker, one of those figures who never appeared in newspapers but pulled strings behind them. "You humiliated yourself?" the man said coldly, smoke curling around his words. "And worse, you let Harrington start digging." Cole clenched his fists. "I can handle him." The man leaned closer, eyes sharp. "Handle him? Or silence him? Because if Harrington keeps going, he won't just end you, he'll end all of us." Cole swallowed hard. He understood. His career was no longer just his problem. But Harrington wasn't alone either. One evening, as he left his office, a woman intercepted him on the courthouse steps. Her name was Evelyn Price, a sharp-eyed investigative journalist who had been following Cole's career for years. "I know what you're digging into," she said quietly. "And I've been digging too." She showed him a folder filled with photographs, bank records, and transcripts of anonymous interviews. "These people," she said, pointing to the documents, "were steamrolled by Cole, wrongfully convicted, pressured into plea deals, or ruined financially. I've been trying to expose it, but every time I get close, my sources disappear." Harrington studied her. She was bold, determined, maybe reckless, but she had what he needed, pieces of the puzzle he couldn't get alone. "Then we dig together," Harrington said. With Price's help, Harrington set a trap. He arranged a private meeting with Cole, under the guise of negotiation. The room was dim, quiet, empty except for the two men. Harrington spoke calmly, every word deliberate. "You've made mistakes, Jonathan. People are talking. Files don't disappear without leaving a trace. Money doesn't move without records. You should be careful." Cole's face twitched, caught between arrogance and fear. "Are you accusing me of something, Mr. DA?" "I'm not accusing," Harrington replied evenly. "I'm observing." Cole leaned forward, sneering. "Careful, Harrington. Dig too deep, and you might not like what you find." The words slipped out like a confession. Harrington didn't flinch, though inside he knew the recording device in his pocket was catching every syllable. It was almost enough. Almost. But just as Harrington prepared to press further, the door slammed open. Masked men burst in, armed and efficient. The air filled with shouts and the glint of steel. Price, waiting outside, screamed as chaos erupted. Harrington barely managed to shove the recording device into his jacket before diving for cover. The masked men overturned chairs, smashed the table, and in the confusion, dragged Evelyn Price away. By the time security arrived, the men were gone. Cole too had vanished, slipping out in the chaos. His smirk burned into Harrington's memory. That night, Harrington sat alone in his wrecked office. His shirt was torn, his hands bruised. Evelyn was missing. The recording was damaged in the struggle. And yet, he refused to let despair take hold. Then, a knock at the door. No one was there, just a plain envelope slid under the frame. Inside was a single flash drive. Harrington plugged it into his computer. A grainy video flickered to life. A shadowed figure appeared on screen, voice distorted. "You're closer than you think, Harrington. But if you keep going, it will cost you everything." The screen went black. Harrington sat back, eyes narrowing. The war was bigger than Cole, bigger than one prosecutor, and it had just begun. Injustice doesn't just hide in the shadows. It thrives in silence. And when silence is broken, those who fear the truth will do anything to bury it again. To be continued.